Well guys, welcome to this video, and this is going to be a full overview of my initial impressions of my BRZ TS on track. Now, I know that I had sort of teased you guys that this was coming, and here it is. And the first thing I'm going to say right off the bat is I want to address my passenger's helmet. Maybe some of you noticed it, maybe some of you didn't already notice it, but regardless, I just want to go ahead and take full responsibility for the fact that that helmet is not latched properly. The main thing that showed me is that even if you check it once, you need to check it again. And so from now on, I'm going to be triple checking the helmets and the helmet straps of anybody going out on track with me, because I consider anybody that's a passenger on track with me to be my full responsibility the entire time we were on track. And now that I've addressed that, let's go ahead and move on into the rest of the footage. The funny thing about this part of the footage, and really any and all footage from this particular track weekend of being on the back straight at Road Atlanta, is you really do realize how many cars are faster in a straight line than a BRZ. And when you go flat in a BRZ of any kind, really, unless it's a boosted BRZ, when you go flat out in a BRZ on the back straight of Road Atlanta, you will find yourself being passed like you're standing still by, let's just say, lots and lots and lots of different cars. Now, I was really curious to see how the stock TS suspension would actually feel on track, and to be honest, for a stock suspension, it's really, really impressive. It's obviously on the softer side in terms of something that you would compare to, say, coilover setups and things like that, so it definitely does feel a little bit softer. But the nice thing about having a softer setup like that is that it really does an amazing job of absorbing the bumps, especially the higher speed bumps that would upset like a cheaper coilover especially. Now, when I say a cheaper coilover, I mean something like, let's say, you know, something around like the $1,000 coilover range versus something like the, you know, $2,000 to $2,500 coilover range would do a much better job of absorbing those bumps. But honestly, man, the only thing that I have in this suspension is a $30 set of camber bolts in the front and an alignment. And I was really concerned that we weren't going to be able to get much camber out of the front end, but we were actually able to get, easily able to get 1.5 degrees of negative camber out of the front with these camber bolts. And after this track day, I definitely found that I was still rolling onto the sidewalls of the front tires a little bit. So I would like to dial it up to probably, on a 225, I kind of want to dial it up to maybe negative 1.8 degrees, maybe a little bit more, we'll see. But I'm not really going to go too crazy with the camber in the front until I'm on a full coilover setup with camber plates up top and I'm running a really wide wheel square. So right now, I mean, the stock wheel size is I believe a 18x7, and so even running a 225 on an 18x7, you're still going to sort of balloon the edges of the 225s a little bit. So my plan later on down the road is to run an 18x9.5 with a 255 square. So that would be in my opinion, would be a really, really nice size and a really nice setup that will still fit, but be super, super sticky. And make no mistake, the 225s that I have on the car right now, these AO52s, are really, really sticky. I just need to figure out a couple of different things with the setup to stop me from rolling the sidewalls of the tires. But regardless, the whole objective of this particular track weekend was having a blast with the car. I mean, I ended up going down with a bunch of friends, and a bunch of them ended up wanting to ride with me on track, so it was honestly a really, really fun weekend of sort of getting back to the racetrack after all of the, let's say, all the craziness in the world in the past few months, you know, especially the certain situation that required any sort of area that had large crowds of people to basically shut down. Coming back to the racetrack after that was a really, really, honestly, a really, really cool experience. And of course, you know, there are a lot of new rules around that, but it was funny because when this Z06 passed me, I was like, the only thing I can do here is reel you in just a tiny bit in turns 6 and 7, and then right when we get back out onto the back straight, he is absolutely gone. There's a little bit of like in-car chatter here about how everything in this session was just so fast. I mean, a ZR1 just flew by me, and I believe coming up in a second, you'll see like an Exoset or something of the like fly by me as well. Yeah, and I believe that particular Exoset is an LS Exoset, which makes makes it even crazier. I can only imagine what that feels like to drive. Now, obviously here, I mean, we're braking at about the 200 marker, kind of around the 150 to 200 marker. You see those markers on the right. If you've never been to Road Atlanta, you'll have the 300 marker, the 200 marker, and the 100 marker. And usually, I mean, in a car like a BRZ or a Miata, it's not really that big of a deal to brake at the 200 marker or later. There are some really, really fast cars that are braking at the 200 marker, but you need some crazy brakes in order to do that. But sort of the highlights of the weekend, well, one of the highlights of the weekend anyway, was actually getting to run with some of these stock cars that were obviously some older generation stock cars, but they were on a road course setup. And when they fly past you, it's sort of this weird feeling of like, oh, so basically I am a Prius to him right now. Like as he's going around the track, it's like, oh, so I am basically whatever you want to call it, a Prius, a track obstacle, I don't know, one of those things. But got a little bit of an inertia slide going in turn 5, which is always kind of fun. Especially if you planned it. If you haven't planned it, it's not as much fun, which, I mean, you'll have those scenarios at one time or another when you're on track. But all in all, though, an absolute blast, an absolutely incredible weekend, and the car did really, really well. Now, one of my biggest concerns, obviously, throughout this entire weekend was temperatures, and more importantly, oil temperatures. Now, I have a Jackson Racing oil cooler ready to go on the car, but we couldn't get it on the car in time for this track day. And at the end of the day, it really, really does matter, because at this track day, I would say in terms of how long it took me to get the oil really, really, really toasty, these sessions are 20 minutes long, right? 20 minutes long per run group. It took me about, I would say, 15 minutes or so, well, probably 10 to 15 minutes to see the oil temperatures hitting about 270 to 272 degrees without the oil cooler. Now, before I go back to the track with this car, it's absolutely gonna have an oil cooler, because that was one of those things to me where I was like, you know what? It needs it. It needs it. And I feel genuinely like it's dangerous for this engine without it. Now, fast forward to a later session. The reason why they had that debris flag out was because a particular car, I'm not going to name exactly which car, but a particular car spilled oil all over, well, proceeded to blow its engine, first of all, and then spilled oil all over turns 1 through 4. So I was being very careful in basically the first quarter of the track for almost this entire session after that point. But I changed up the positioning of the camera a little bit to give you guys a better view of the track. But the only problem with that is I don't like the fact that you can't really see the driver, the passenger, you can't really see any of the details going on inside the car. So I definitely still need to work out a camera mounting solution that works while also being able to show what's outside of the windshield in good quality and in good detail, because I'm not gonna lie, I was pretty annoyed with how it looked in the first camera angle. So that's definitely something that I'm gonna work on in the future and get you guys a better angle to look at, because at the end of the day, I mean, you want to be able to have that best of both worlds, like, right? You want to be able to see what's going on in the inside of the car, but you also want to see what's outside the car. And I definitely think that I could have played around with some settings a little bit better to sort of balance that crazy amount of brightness that was going on outside the windshield. And also, forgive my photography, videography terminology, because I know that sometimes it's not the greatest, but at the end of the day, it's one of those things, and it's something that we can work on. It's something that I can work on, because it was a super bright day, and I think the setup of the camera is, again, definitely something that I can work on, and definitely something that I need to figure out for the future. But definitely my overall opinions throughout the weekend were biggest thing was the fact that I loved this car. And I wasn't really surprised at how much I loved it, but one of the biggest things that sort of like stuck out to me was how many memories this car brought back of the red FRS, And in a lot of ways, this car is a lot better than that car in terms of, you know, it's a lot newer, the build quality is a lot better, it's also a TS, so it has a lot more bracing, it has a much better suspension than the old car did, but it brought back a lot of memories of the old car for me, and I definitely have some ideas for this future build, because at the end of the day, this is 100% a successor to that old FRS. So if you guys enjoyed this video going over my weekend at the track, my recent weekend at the track in the TS, I'm actually going back to the track really soon once that oil cooler gets put on. But with all that being said and done, hope you all enjoyed the video. I know it was a little bit of a different video, but if you liked it, then hit that like button, let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments, subscribe for more, and I'll see you guys next time.